What's up, guys? Alexander J. Brooks here. Look, so if you're tired of getting ignored on LinkedIn, sending out a ton of outreach messages and just hearing crickets in response, it's probably not the quality of your messages. It's not about writing more or writing them smarter. A lot of people just don't even read messages that come into their inbox nowadays. And so what I've found is that people spend way too much time focused on the words and trying to figure out what do I need to say, that they ignore the fact that most people respond because of what they actually feel from your message. And there are subtle things that you can do just in the tone and the style of the way you outreach to get people to actually read the message and want to respond. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over one of those strategies, which is personalization. And the problem with personalization that makes it a bit tricky is that typically you have to personalize to each and every individual profile, which means that you or someone on your team has to manually look at the profile, write a unique message, and do that for probably a few hours every day. The other alternative is what is called a bulk personalization strategy. And this is where you split up your entire market into sub niches where you can write a first line that's going to sound a little less personalized, but you're able to do more outreach with less manual effort. But typically, it's very hard to combine both personalization and volume at the extent that you need in order to be successful on LinkedIn. Because no matter how good of a response rate you're getting, LinkedIn and cold outreach in general is still a numbers game. So I actually set out to come up with a third option. I wanted to see if there was a way that I could automate that level of personalization that someone would receive if you looked through their entire profile, but to do so at scale. And what I ended up doing was I built an automation using things like ChatGPT and others to actually scrape a profile, find something personalized like a recent post or something in their about section and write a custom comment on it. And so in this video, I'll show you both how that system works, as well as what the results were. They were pretty shocking. So first off, I want to show you the baseline. How many responses were we getting and what messages was I sending before implementing this? That way I can blow your mind once I show you what changed after we actually implemented the custom first lines. So I know this is a lot of numbers, but pay attention to this column here. This is the number of responses that I was getting earlier this year. I was doing pretty well. I was usually getting in the range of 20, 30, and some weeks higher responses. But then it dropped down. And I think it dropped down because people on LinkedIn started seeing a lot more messages from people like me, and they started getting more skeptical. Now, I'd never run into this type of problem before. I'd always gotten a good response rate, but just out of nowhere, my response rate dropped quite a bit. And so I had to find a new way to actually cut through the noise and get people to read my messages and respond. Now, here's an example of the type of messages that I was sending. This is a campaign I've been running for a very long time now that's always gotten consistent responses. Great to connect. Do you mind if I share why I reached out? It's just a gentle conversation starter that people typically respond well to. But like I said, recently the responses went down quite a bit. I've also been running email campaigns. This is an email that has enrolled multiple different clients and actually built referral partnerships and gotten me connected in with other people who became clients. And this campaign was doing pretty well, but I knew that it could be doing better. You see, I was getting about a 1 or 2% response rate, which is on the lower side. I know my niche is very oversaturated now with people who are reaching out and spamming people about lead generation, but I felt that I could get a better response rate than this. Now, I had already done custom first lines before. In fact, it's actually a big part of my process that I teach my clients to write custom first lines to everyone who responds to their messages. But it always came after people responded. So for example, here's the connector message, here's that message that you already saw, and then the prospect responds. And this is where I actually teach my clients to write a custom first line and then explain basically what they're reaching out about and what they have to offer. So I already had a bit of a formula for writing first lines, but I started wondering what would happen if I actually moved these custom first lines before they responded. Would that boost my response rate so that people who otherwise would just ignore me could actually get into a conversation with me. And so what I did was I looked through the first lines that me and my clients were writing, and I identified some patterns. And then I coded these patterns into a GPT. I'm going to scroll through briefly because you guys are probably going to screenshot this and rip me off. But I then coded a GPT that could take this input. So let's just use this for example. And if we put in their profile info, it would spit back a custom first line, just like the ones that me and my clients write. And so now I had a tool that would actually give me a custom first line, but I needed a way to run it at scale because I couldn't just sit around all day copying and pasting info from LinkedIn into ChatGPT. Enter Google Sheets. And so what I did is I knew that I could export leads from different databases. I personally use Sales Navigator for lead sourcing, but you could basically create a Google Sheet from any different platform. And I built a system that would scrape their profile, find their headline, about section, recent posts, company description, and write a custom first line. And I've now been using this tool for a few weeks now, writing custom first lines automatically at scale like you see here, and just briefly going through them and making sure that they look good and sending them out. Now, just so that you can see it work, I will run it for you live. And basically what happens, like I said, is it's going to go in, it's going to trigger an automation, it'll scrape their LinkedIn profile, find all the relevant info, and then it's going to pass it over to ChatGPT, which writes the first lines. And so this all happens automatically. I only ran it for 3 of these, but we could run it for this entire sheet, and it would just take a little longer. But here are some of the few that it ran for. Love your vision for changing attitudes toward ADHD and supporting women 40 and better. These are all highly personalized based on what it found on their profile. Now, all well and good, super cool, custom first line, it looks great. But just because something looks great doesn't mean that it actually makes money. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually test this strategy to see if it held water, to see if it was worth the extra tech and investment and everything. And so I tested this against the messages that I was sending otherwise, both on LinkedIn and on email. And like I said, the results were everything that I was hoping for. Here's an example of a prospect who got a custom first line. Love your mission to improve psychological safety and make work fun for everyone. She responded and ended up booking a call, and I'm actually taking her through my sales process right now. Here's a prospect who responded to an email. Love your dedication to creating meaningful connections in the industrial sector. And we had a conversation, set up a call. And again, I'm working on a deal with him as we speak. When you look at the stats, I actually went from the 5 to 10 that we were talking about earlier to 10, 30, and this week so far, 7 responses already, and it's just Wednesday. I also ended up booking in about, 12 calls just from LinkedIn, and the rest of these calls came from email. So like I said, I wanted to run a proper A/B test just to see how they stacked up against the other messages. And this part was really interesting. Now, these 4 campaigns are the ones I was testing. Old, new, new. Now, not only did the new one have about a 4x difference versus the old one, 3 to 4x between the two, but all of the opportunities that I actually opened up came from the new copy, which means not only are those personalized first lines good in just getting people to respond, but those responses are actually meaningful opportunities. Look, in the past month, since launching this on October 7th and October 8th, I've generated almost 30 opportunities of people saying that they were interested. Now, not all of those are going to convert. Not all of them are even going to get on a call, but that's 30 people who I now have the opportunity to ask them the right questions and invite them to a call. And ironically, none of them came from the old campaigns. So if you've been doing outreach, or if you've done outreach in the past, but you just haven't gotten the responses that actually make it worth the effort that you're putting in, then you need to understand it's all about how people feel when they receive your message. Now, personalization is a great way to do that. Clearly, it's very effective, but it can be done just by changing the style and the tonality of your outreach. I've had clients come to me sending hundreds of messages every single week and getting practically no responses. And within a few weeks, just by implementing messages that we've tested and proven on other accounts, they've gotten dozens of responses every single week. And it's not because we found the perfect way to explain their offer. It's not because we talked with ChatGPT and came up with the perfectly worded outreach message. It's because we understood human psychology, what gets people to actually trust a stranger who has just slid into their DMs and want to have a conversation with them. Now, if you want to see some of those videos, I'll tag a case study here with a few different clients who went through that exact process. They were getting no responses. We tweaked their messages, and you can see how it's worked on a bunch of different accounts. Because even though fancy systems like this personalized first line one are very cool, there are some even lower level ways of increasing your response rate and getting people to actually want to talk with you. So I'll link to that here. Feel free to go check out those and see what some other clients have done to actually turn their response rate around. And if at any point you actually feel like it would be helpful for us to have a conversation and see if I may be able to help you with either the outreach that you're currently doing or implement a new system for you to start more conversations on LinkedIn, just shoot me a message. I'm happy to talk. But with that said, happy outreaching. I wish you the best. And feel free to subscribe wherever you saw this so you can actually see more updates on what's been working for me and my clients as we go forward. LinkedIn's always changing, so you never know what you're going to need to do to stay ahead. Talk soon.